It's a migrant crisis over in New York. What the hell is happening? Why are y'all not holding this guy accountable? And why is he begging for more money?
This is a sign of a crisis, greatest, I believe, humanitarian crisis this city has ever witnessed. I'm on the ground. I'm not detached from this. I walk through surprise visits to see the quality of service.
How often?
Very often. Very
Once a
often. I
week?
can give you once a week.
What specifically can you do to address that issue of migrants not being able to work?
We're going to do the duality of calling for rightfully the resources for the city. Even something simple as calling a state of emergency. If the president does that, it allows us to get resources.
Well, that was New York City Mayor Eric Adams defending his handling of the city's migrant crisis while calling for President Biden again to declare a state of emergency. A new Siena College poll finds 82% of New Yorkers say the migrant influx is a serious problem. Only 16% say it's not a serious problem. Get this, 58% say the state has done enough and should work to slow the flow of migrants. 36% want to accept more.
Let me ask y'all a question. Was President Trump right? I'm not saying that he was. I'm not saying that he wasn't. Was Trump, when he was president, correct in assessing the fact that we needed to do more to close off our borders? We had needed to have stricter controls over who gets into the country. Or, and I'm going to be reading those super chats shortly, or is it okay for us to sing Kumbaya and let everybody in to be able to be politically correct? Honestly, just questioning. Is DeSantis correct for busing migrants over into the states where people are saying it's cool? Or should we have done more to close off our borders and enforce the laws that's actually on the books as far as what it is that we should have done as far as the migrant crisis? Because that's just people that's getting into that in here that we can document. It's a lot of people that's coming in here as illegal immigrants. Let's continue.
Look at those numbers. Joining me now, New York Congresswoman Nicole Maliotakis. She's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and the House Republican Conference Assistant Whip. Congresswoman, your reaction?
Well, obviously, it's very frustrating because the mayor is not demanding, and our governor is not demanding, that the president secure our border. Instead, they're asking the federal government for more resources so they can open up more shelters. The mayor, from the very beginning, has misinterpreted New York City's right to shelter law, which was intended for homeless citizens. It was never intended for citizens of other countries who just crossed our border. And so by his interpretation, there has been 7.5 million people. If they all came to New York City, where we have a population of 8.5 million, New York City taxpayers would be responsible for paying for their housing, legal services, Metro cards, and food, etc.
Did you hear that? You're the one that pay for it. See, a lot of people think that the government is then responsible for whatever it is that happens, whether it's in the United States of America or it's within your city. The reality is this: the government is merely a representation of the people. So when you get your paycheck, I know a lot of us got direct deposit. You know what one of the beautiful things about direct deposit was for the federal government and for the entities that were taxing you? You know what one of the beautiful things is? When you used to get an actual paycheck and you didn't have direct deposit, a lot of this predates you. But when you used to get an actual paycheck and not direct deposit, people were more intentional because they had to look at their check stub in order to realize how much of it was coming out. But when they start doing direct deposits and they start doing e-checks, right, or e-check stubs, so basically you would go onto the company website or wherever it is, and you would download your paycheck check stub if you ever wanted to, or you would go in there and do your declarations as far as how many dependents that you have. Or you would go in there and say, okay, well, this is what I want to go on one place and this is what I want to go into the other bank account. You largely overlook it. And so it's easier for us to then say, hey, this is how much I make because this is how much goes into my bank account. And so you align your budget accordingly. But when you used to get a pay stub, it used to be a reality check because every time I opened up that check, I had to see how much was coming out. I had to see what my gross was, and then I had to see how much was going to FICA, and then federal, and then state, or whatever, so on and so forth. And so it was an egregious offense to most people that would look at their paycheck, see how much was coming out, and then see how much he was going home with. It was disappointing. So you became more intentional with how it is that you manage your money. But now we don't pay attention to it because the overwhelming majority of people just get direct deposit and they overlook it. And so they've been desensitized to the idea of how much comes out of their check versus how much they've actually made. And you are the ones that are on the hook financially for making sure that these people come in. So when I see people say, well, we shouldn't close off our borders, or we shouldn't do that, or we shouldn't do this, what they're really saying is that I want to volunteer to be a contributing factor to whatever it is that we got going on within America or within our society as far as paying for these people to then be housed, clothed, food, shelter, transportation, so on and so forth. So when you see these people coming into your state, you then become responsible, or they take resources away from what it was as meaningful to you in order to make sure that they're taken care of. Their goal is to say, send me more money, tax more people, give us more money in order to continue to house, clothe, food, shelter, or whatever, instead of saying, how do we solve the core root of the problem?
All these things that citizens themselves don't get. So it's really ludicrous. And so two things. One, he should be demanding the president to secure the border. Let's stop this. Undo his executive orders today. And that would really resolve this problem. And number two, the mayor needs to stop misinterpreting this right to shelter and put an end to all this housing. This come to a point where he's looking at every single park, open space, empty buildings that are supposed to be right now transitioned into schools in my district are now being turned into shelters instead. And I'm in a community of Staten Island where we did not support this mayor's agenda. We did not support the governor or the president's agenda, and yet we're being subjected to their policies because we are part of New York City, and that is increasingly frustrating for this community.
Well, Congresswoman.
So if we really want to break this down, right? If we really, really want to break this down, then that means that you are okay with money coming out of your paycheck. Because remember, all of these empty buildings, all of these cracks and crevices where they finding resources, they looking for dollars where dollars was no longer available or wasn't available to the general public. But now they have it available in order to make sure that they service a need. And then they go into the federal government and they go into Biden and they say, we need more money just for us to continue to take care. Meanwhile, over in Hawaii, they can't find a resource to save their life in order to help them when they supposed to be a part of the United States, right? Over in Hawaii, everything is dead. Everything is burned down. They just letting capitalism run rampant, and the government plays no role in protecting the citizens from what it is that they see happening or what it is that they can predict is going to happen anyway. And in NY, they saying, listen, we got 8.5 million people here. We probably got another 7 million coming in as far as migrants into this country. And let's be clear, immigration isn't bad. Immigration isn't bad if you go through the process and you follow the law. Migrants, illegal immigration, just opening up the borders for anybody to be able to flow in is bad. And that's the difference.
Construction already underway on that tent city on the grounds of the Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. All of this as buses filled with asylum seekers continue to arrive at Port Authority like this one did just a short while ago. That's where Kendall Green is live tonight to say members of the community are unhappy. In this case in particular, I guess would be an understatement. Right, Kendall?
Hey, good evening, Stephen and Natasha. The city is overwhelmed with the migrant crisis, but as the city aims to put an immigration shelter right there, residents tell us that they're overwhelmed by the idea of it. Just moments ago, this place was packed with hundreds of protesters, thousands even, pushing back.
Every day, the city heats another degree toward its boiling point as tempers flare in Queens Village surrounding Mayor Adams' latest move to house migrants in the tent city. Tuesday's rally drew thousands to the construction site of a migrant tent city on the site of the state-run Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. Where
reading that super chat shortly, I appreciate you.
Just on the other side of the chain-link fence, youth baseball teams were having a baseball game, adding fuel to demonstrators' frustrations.
This whole thing is going to snowball because the schools are going to open in about 2 weeks. all right? And we're totally unprepared to handle that.
You look behind us, there's a park, there's a YMCA there, we have a charter school behind us, a preschool on the side.
There's concern for students as well as the elderly.
We have a SNAP Center here. SNAP Center gets funded by how many people they serve. The senior citizens are going to be intimidated and afraid of the individuals.
Signs read, Americans over migrants. House our vets in No Tent City at Creedmoor, among hundreds of others. As time went by, the protests grew louder and louder. Why are you here?
I'm here because this is outrageous. They have put in non-American before American.
Boy, it ain't nothing like people coming together for one cause. You can be black, white, Asian, whatever. People don't care, and this is what I found. People don't care until it's on their doorstep. They vote for it. They advocate for it. By not voting for it, they enable it. They continue to participate in it. All of these conversations, listen, these are conversations that you should have had when you decided on who it was going to be your mayor, who was going to be your president, who it was going to be your city council members, who it was going to be your treasurer. Remember when we was all distracted by what was going on during the pandemic? What people was protesting about worldwide, when we wasn't really paying attention to what was going to happen within our own communities? Now we want to be concerned. Now we want to be reactive. Now we want to start having a conversation about who stands on what and why borders should be closed. When I remember when I seen the results, they said overwhelmingly that these people won. So I don't really understand why there's protests, especially when local elections historically has had low voter turnout. Why is there concern within your community about what your resources is going into in the tent cities that's not being built within your environment when this is the thing that you advocated for? New York City and all of its boroughs has always historically been blue. Always historically been blue. I don't know why these people are not volunteering to help build the tent cities. Why are they not out there continuing to advocate for more people to come in and then they can house them and then they can get a part of the stimulus, what the mayor was advocating for as far as paying people to have migrants that they've never even seen before lay in their houses right next to their children? I don't understand what the problem is. New York has always been blue. What is the problem? Why are y'all begging? How come y'all can't manage what your budget was when you knew that this was a part of what it is that you signed up for in the first place? What is the problem? Now you want to come out with the signs. Now you want to have this guy over here standing next to you. Look at this. White, Asian hate crime bill just went on out the window, and now we make sure that we advocating for Americans over migrants. This is what you signed up for. What's the problem?
We need to take care of America first.
Protesters made their way across the street to where construction has already begun for the tent city to house 1,000 single male migrants.
It's a Washington issue. We can't deal with this in all the boroughs.
Say it loud, say it clear.
Yet on the other side of that protest, a smaller group with a different point of view, also getting their message across.
Really sad to see us blaming vulnerable people who have risked their lives for a better future.
I agree, ma'am. I agree. Matter of fact, let me switch over. I did not intentionally wear a red hat because I was standing on the conservative side. I'm going blue today because this is what you guys signed up for. Don't start complaining about it now. This is a part of what you wanted. It's very sad for these people that risk their lives to come across the border and across the water for a better life, and you're not being receptive to that. This is what you signed up for. Own it. Own it. Own it.
For their situation, as opposed to holding accountable people in power.
Now, a spokesperson with City Hall says they're well aware of what's going on and sent us this statement in part saying, quote, "We in the state are working to ensure that the site is well managed and that any potential disruptions are minimized. While New York City is leading the nation in welcoming asylum seekers, make no mistake, we cannot continue to do this alone. This crisis."
Oh, now they want your help. Now they want your help. don't worry. Listen, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. Before we read some of the super chats, I just want to let you know that I am in support of what New York City and their mayor and President Biden is doing. Because let's be clear, this is what you guys voted for. The government is simply a representation of its people. Its people in a democracy are the ones that choose their leadership. You chose your leader. It's almost like letting a child choose their parent, letting a child choose their parent, and then getting mad at the parent that's governing the child in their household. The parent told you that they was going to have a foster care system and that they was going to start having other kids come into the room with you. Now you're going to have a bunk bed. Now you got to share your room with other kids. Don't start getting mad at the parent now. You chose them. You chose your parent.